Hello, welcome to Teresa and Allsewnup. I hope you're all well. We've had some lovely weather here, very snowy. The temperature did actually reach -3, -4 earlier on in the week. It was freezing, absolutely freezing. But I suppose to some of you that would almost be like a summer day. I love the snow, it's so pretty, but we've had it now for a few days, so it's time for it to go. Time for us all to look forward to spring and good times ahead. Things are getting better, so let's try and keep optimistic. I'm going to make a craft bag or a bag. It doesn't have to be a craft bag. It's based on the lines of a tote bag, and it combines a couple of things. It's one of those quite a lengthy project with a couple of techniques going on, all slow stitch with some weaving and applique, but the influence is from Matisse. Now Matisse was a great painter. He was born around about the mid-19th century. He actually died in 1954. He was well known for his paintings and his beautiful colours. He loved colour. But as he got older, he was very ill, and he found that he was suddenly confined to a wheelchair or confined to bed, and his hands weren't as strong as they used to be, so he hired an assistant and he would tell her what to do. But the great thing was he moved from painting to cutouts. Yeah, cutouts like we all did as children. In fact, he took an awful lot of criticism because his work became childlike, and he ignored all this and he carried on. He produced some wonderful things. I actually prefer his cutouts. This is one of the famous ones. It's the snail. The postcards from the Tate, and the snail. When I first saw this, I thought, the snail, he must have been very sick to have produced this. But there is a snail shape going round here, and I absolutely love it. So we are going to concentrate on Matisse's cutouts, and if you are interested in shape and bright colours, and you're a bit intrigued about this very famous artist working with scissors and cutouts, and how he came to this stage, and how he actually coped and worked from his wheelchair. He was quite physically impaired, didn't stop him. Great story that it did not stop him. It actually motivated him, and I just think, whoa, you know, big cheers for this man. So that is, yeah, I was going to say, if you are intrigued by this wonderful man, he had a few strange things at my heart, but we won't go into that. Art-wise, fabulous. So anyone can do this. Anyone can do this. You don't need the skill of drawing or painting. If you have some scissors and you have strength in your hands, and even these special scissors, these clip scissors that you only need 2 fingers for, and you clip, you can do this. No one's excluded. Do look at Matisse if you're interested. So we're actually going to use him as our influence. We're not copying him. We're going to be influenced by Matisse, by his oak leaves. Well, I'm calling them oak leaves. They're actually just leaves. And the oak tree in my garden. And between the two, we're going to make a bag. I'm just going to carry on now with the housekeeping. So very quickly, I'm going to run through the names, welcome you all, and then we'll move on. Sally Holloway, Karen E. Marchant. Hope you like the comment, Carolyn, about Opus Anglicanum in your comments. Stella Tan, Hella Maritz, Melanie Nicholson, Dylan, Marion Brown, Sherry Vanderpool, Raylin Refrushini. Did you like that, Raylin? I've been practicing. Refrushini, see? I can say it now. Grianne, Turslin Cole. Turslin, I hope you're feeling okay, and I hope things are looking up for you. Global Hiking, CR. Sharon Lewinter, Glenn Leader, Steve Webb and Myra from the USA. And these people have been together for 50 years. Oh, I think that's amazing. Big congratulations to you both. Carolyn Hamilton, Denise North, Kath Avalon, and Emmanuel Montero. So big welcome to you all. I hope you enjoy this project, and thank you for taking the time out to comment. Sit down, it's coffee time, biscuit time, feet on the coffee table, and enjoy. We made a frame before, if you remember. This time we're making the frame from a picture frame, literally a picture frame that's had the backing and the glass taken out. And you can see there, I've banged in 15 thumbtacks, or I've actually put 17 in each side, but I've used 15. Now I'm using the width of the frame, and mine measures 13 inches. Mine is 13 inches from there to there. So I've tried to match the top and the bottom pins here, so we get a nice straight warp thread. The threads that go down, the ones that you can see at the minute, are called warp threads. These are the warp threads. This is going to be the way my fabric will go. Now the threads that go across are called the weft threads. Now the way I've done this, because we're all about texture, my warp threads here are a mixture of thick and thin, very thick and very thin, and I've deliberately left these raggy bits of wool where I've knotted or joined the wool. I'm just going to leave those to see if I can incorporate them some way in with the weft threads. And it's something we've probably all learnt to do at school. There's this to do. I might have to cover this up so you can actually see what I'm doing. To do the chains, it's so simple. All you're going to do, you need a crochet hook, although you can actually do it with your finger. You can do it like this, but I find it easier to use a crochet hook. I'm just going to twist it round like so. Now take this, hold the loose one down, and then you take the piece from your ball of wool round like this. So now you've got two pieces of wool over your hook, and slip the bottom one over the top one. There you go, your first chain. So wool round that. I'm going to move that over there because there seems to be a lot of wool then. Right, so we've got the first one there, wool round, and there you go. Whoops. And there's your second chain. So over and through, over and through, over and through, and that is all you're doing. Slipping one piece of thread over the new piece of thread. So easy. Now to make these thick ones, this thick one would have been made with, I think it's 4 strands, 4 pieces of wool or strands of wool. I didn't go any higher than 4. Yeah, so that is 4. I can see 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 4 strands of wool there. So that was quite a feat and a half. Now I've also made some more here, and I'm going to weave this. I'm going to use this as my weft thread at some point, because we want texture, we want a textured background. So some areas will have this thick wool and others will just have a single strand. And I'd like to keep to all the beautiful, bold, bright colours that Matisse used in his cutouts. For those of you who maybe a bit rusty about weaving. Now I'm using this so you can see it. This is just for demonstration purposes, okay? I'm going to go under the first warp thread. So if I go under the first one, I have to go over the second one. So under, over, under, over, under, over. Here we finished under, so coming back we're going to have to start with an over. So we finished under, so the end one will now be over, under, over, under, over, under, and that's all there is to it. So there you see, I might actually leave that. That looks quite good. That looks quite good. Now, when you're doing your weaving, it's up to you how you space them and how you push them up. Because this is so thick, you can just push them up with your finger, like so. And any little gaps you can fill in. I'll make a start with this, and as soon as I make headway, I'll get back and you can have a look and see how I've got on. So I decided to keep the ribbon here, and I've actually added to it as well to make it wider. I've used up the thread that I showed you I made with the crochet hook, so there's areas here of thick against thin, and in some of these areas I've broken up these groups here. If you can see, there are groups of 3 threads there. I've broken some of those up here and used them individually for a little bit of interest. I'm going to introduce some fabric threads. Now I've got a collection here that I've just made into strips, all remnants, so I haven't had to buy anything. I started off using a great big darning needle for this great big needle with the lovely eye there, but this was far too thick for a needle, and it was quite easy to do fingers. You really don't need a needle. I finished on an under, so I should start on an over. So over, under, over. Just going to keep doing what I did before, the over and the under. Now there are a couple of ways that you could use this. You could use it flat, so you get a nice width to the fabric, the weft, or you could actually use it tightly, pull it tightly, and then you'll have like a string, a cord effect. Right, so make sure we're doing this right. Lovely. And already I think that's looking quite good. Here we are, and that's that one. Just going to push it down. Yes, this definitely needed a little bit of blue just to break up the red, because Matisse did use quite a lot of blue, nice rich blue. So I don't think I'd do more than, yeah, I'm only going to do one row of that, so I shall leave that there. That's quite nice actually. I like the way that almost curves there, so I shall leave that like that. Now any pieces of thread that or any pieces of thread that haven't covered up the holes, doesn't matter, because when I finished I'm going to go back and fill in some of these holes here. You can see there are gaps with a finer thread to give us more of a texture. Now when you do come to cutting your thread like I've done here, make sure you leave it with a nice piece, a nice length here. That must be about 1.5 inches, because you're going to need to secure that later so it doesn't unravel. So you need at least 1 inch to turn back later on. Okay, so I'm going to carry on with this. I might have a yellow next. Oh, that is a bright yellow. I might put the yellow next to it. all I should do is just play around and see what I come up with. And right, most of the weaving's now been done. There are spaces, if you can see here, places like here. Oh, perhaps you can't. I'm just going to move that down slightly. Right here, you can see here there's quite an area there that hasn't been done. There's a band of it there, there's a band there, and there's some there. Now you can create that yourself by just opening up like that and creating your own bands, and then to provide more contrast and more interest, you just fill them in. Now I've threaded up a needle with some gold to match this gold here, and I'm just going to show you how I'm going to start filling these in. And I will use a needle because it's in middle of a row, it's going to be a lot easier to get in and out of these areas with a needle instead of my big fingers. So we'll start with this one. It's just come up. Now because we're starting in the center, there will be lines that follow the same pattern. They won't necessarily be under over. They will possibly be maybe 2 overs, 2 unders. It doesn't matter. It all adds to the interest. Now I'm just weaving in that shape there, filling that shape up. Oh, there's a bit there. And at this stage I don't think I want to introduce any new colours. I think there's enough colours on this as it is. So that one's done there. And while I've got a little piece left here, I'll just use this tiny little piece up somewhere. Right, I've got that there and I've got it matching there, so it might be nice to follow that down here. Right, I might take it through, oh, it's a bit difficult to get underneath now. Right, take it through there. Now this might not actually work because that means there's going to be 2 rather strong yellows together. Right, just in and out, in and out. Let's see how long that is. Ah, yes, and I'll be able to push that in with the needle then. I might even separate those with a different colour between them. So all I'm going to do now is fill in some of these spaces with other threads, and that will give it even more texture. It will give it more shape because I shall be making shapes now in some of these areas here. I've turned the frame round now so that you can see it. I've filled in the areas here as I said I would, all the gaps. I've filled in some there, there's some blue there, there's a beautiful piece of green. I did say that I wasn't going to introduce any more colours, but I just happened to find 2 very, very short pieces of green satin ribbon. They must have been less than 6 inches long each, and there's a lime green one there and there's a nice deep green one there, so I've used those. I've also introduced a little bit of lace. I pushed some lace in there, and that's lace as well here. There's a bit more lace down here. Some more blue there, a whole row of blue there. And I'm not sure if there's anything else. Oh yes, some grey net there. So you see that grey line there? That's broken the white up, and I think that looks quite nice there. The white started to look very, very solid as all these colours were falling into place and it was becoming more solid looking. It also made the white look solid as well, and there was too much of a white band appearing, so I've just broken it up with that. Now the next thing to do is to neaten the back, so I'll turn that over Right, here's the back, and as you can see, it does need to be neatened. Now I'll turn it this way. Now, so over sewing, that's coming back here, this yellow piece. Just going to lie it nice and flat and over sew it in place, and I lay that there. A knot in the thread which I'm using, a double thread, a knot, and I'm just going to clip it all the way down. Now we don't have to be too exact, as long as it's held down in place. Don't worry about being neat, you want it held down securely, so that might only take a few stitches. There, now that's taken 3 big over sewing stitches there, because the back won't be on show at all. The back will be covered up with calico. There's going to be a calico backing put on the back of this, but the main thing is all these are held down so the weaving doesn't come undone. So I've got a red one here, see the red one there. I'm just going to jump over here. There's also a gold one there. So I'm just going to jump over to the red one and just over sew that in place. Only a stitch or 2, and already that edge is looking nice and neat there. You'll see it better this way. That's the little piece there. Oh, it hasn't made much difference at the moment, but it will do. There's that bit there. So I shall carry on now, and I'm going to over sew all these under, and then we can start thinking about the measurement for the calico and taking these off, so we end up with a nice piece of fabric that we can then use as a background. Okay, and it's finished. This is the front, so I'm just showing you the front now. The ends, the raggy ends have gone. I'm going to turn it over, and you can see it's looking a bit neater now. I trimmed all the raggy bits, I've sewn them down, and you can probably see great big stitches here. Can you see the great big stitches? And here, some of the smaller pieces I actually glued. I've glued them with just an ordinary glue stick, just that, to hold them down in place, and then I did a few stitches over them. The 2 ends here and the bottom one, I've tacked these just on the edge so they don't move when I take this away from the frame. So I'm now going to take this off the frame. I'm not going to cut it. I'm going to, because it's been looped, I'm going to lift it off. I don't think it's going to be that easy, but I will try to lift it off. Oh yes, it's coming away quite easy. I'd like to keep the pins in place to use this again. So they're just unhooking nicely. And there it is. Some of them were very difficult to get off, particularly the very last one, funnily enough, where the thread had gone around and underneath the pin. I had to cut it off. I have actually cut off maybe 3 where they did exactly the same. There's a couple of strands here that I couldn't reach earlier, so they'll have to go underneath. But that is the finished piece now. I'm quite pleased with that. So the next thing to do, we're not going to worry about these ends at the moment. I'm going to pop it now onto a piece of calico. Now the calico is will be bigger. I want it to be bigger than the weaving. That is now 7 inches wide by 12 inches long. Actually, I'm going to leave it that size. I should trim it later. So as you can see, it's quite a bit bigger. And I'm going to pin that. I'm going to pin that all the way round and then tack it. So this is finished now. This is the background fabric for our slow stitch. I thought I might keep this. I'm not sure yet, but there's a possibility that I might keep this. I might cut them and strand them, and I'm really not sure. So that is why I haven't trimmed them off at the moment. That is what we'll be working with. We'll be working with it that way. I'm going to work the tree in scrim, but it needs to be made a bit stronger. So I'm going to back it with this deep red. I've lined that with a very lightweight violin or bonding fabric. So these two now need to be tacked together. Great big stitches, not going to be seen. They just need to secure all the fabrics here together. So that's finished, nicely secured all the way round. You can see the stitch in here, and it does go all the way around and it clips all the pieces together. So that is now ready to go back onto the frame. Now I'm going to use the same frame, this one here. I'm using a big darning needle. You can see the gorgeous big eye on there. Blunt end, don't want any sharp end. It's a nice size. This is garden twine. So I have quite a nice length here and a nice knot. Right, so I'm going to start here. I'm going to take my needle through the fabric. Whoa, that's tough. Through the fabric there, and I'm going to knot it here. Just going to knot it in place just to secure it and just to make sure it won't come undone. So that's lovely there. Now I'm going to just go round a couple of these. It doesn't matter how you do this as long as it's secured. Yes, I'm going to come back over here. I'll miss a couple of those. In fact, I'm going to miss 3 of those, and I shall come back, and this is actually just an over stitch from one side to the other. The only difference is we're going over a piece of wood. There, look, over here. So over here, and then under here. We want to keep it all sort of regular there. I'm going to miss a couple more. See, the thing is, if it's still too loose when you finish, you can always go back. So let's do that again. So over here and under and back up. Over. I'm going to do this to both ends. I want to check this first just to make sure that it's going to hold, but I think it will. I don't think it's going to need any more stitches. Sometimes when I do this, I go back and I fill in the gaps here, but this thread, this twine, is so strong, I don't think I need to do that. And then here, and then secure this off tightly. Right, now here we go, and make sure that is completely secure there. Ugh. Knot it. Lovely, that is gorgeous. So let's have a look, see what we've done there. That is smashing, completely. Oh yeah, it's not even going to move. So I'm going to do exactly the same to this end as I did there. So I'm going to pull it down as tightly as possible. It needs to be really tight now, so we don't have any slack in the middle. So that's the two ends done now. Bottom and top, doesn't matter which way it goes around at the moment. I'm going to do exactly the same here to the sides. So we're going to take it from here across this big gap over to the fabric, but do exactly the same. So into the front, over the wooden bit, over the wooden frame, and pull it. No secrets there. Lovely strong pull all the way down. And that's that side done. Now I'm going to do exactly the same to this side. This is the important side, because now this is the side that is going to determine how taut this is, how nice and firm this is. So this one must be pulled very, very tightly. And there we have it. So now this is ready for our design, and I'm taking the design from the tree in the front, just outside the window here, beautiful big oak tree. And this is a photograph from that tree. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to change it slightly. You can eliminate the areas you don't like and exaggerate those you do. Well, I'd like my tree to come up here and across the top round here. So I'm going to exaggerate the trunk and bring it down here. So we have a trunk that is in that part. So that's all trunk. And I'm going to bring it round here. I'd like to keep a lot of the bigger branches here with some of the smaller ones, but others I will eliminate. I'm going to eliminate these as well, all the dead leaves that are still clinging for survival. They'll be all eliminated. I want the dark areas here that you can see, all these lovely dark areas. I'm going to keep those branches. Now I'm not going to transfer the design at all onto the fabric. I'm just going to do it freehand, just freestyle. It's quite easy. There's nothing there that needs detail. It doesn't matter if I decide to put a branch where there isn't a branch. It doesn't matter at all. The main thing is I have a tree form here, around here, and it will be over the weaving, because once this is finished with our slow stitch and all our stitchery, our embellishment to the fabric, it's going to be cut out and then appliqued onto the weaving. Okay, so that is my next step now, to start the tree. And as I said, I will do it freehand, and I shall use all the stitches that we've used in the past from our notebook stroke journal of stitches that we did last time. So I'm going to go off now and plan my attack on this, and I'll get back to you as soon as I've made a little head start. Okay, now before I start with the sewing on here, I'm just going to mark out an area where the tree is going to be placed. So what I've done, I've just measured this against the hessian, or the burlap. I know some of you call it burlap. So the hessian here, burlap, and I've marked it here. Now I've used pen mark because it doesn't matter with this, because it won't notice. This will be covered up at some point. So it's from there. I'm avoiding the I'm going to call these eyelets because it sounds so much better than holes. I'm going to avoid these and the lacing. So I've come in about 1/2 inch from there, because there is now a weakness there. So I've moved in here, put the mark there, and another mark here, just ordinary pen. And I'm using ordinary pen because it's not going to notice, but I need a strong pen to work on the hessian. But I'm only putting the 2 marks there. Now I know the tree can come up here, the length of this, so the tree can now come up here and it can extend across there, but it stops right there. So here we have it. You see this? Oh, is that there? It's actually that width. So the trunk will come up here, and it will, maybe, I'm not sure, I'm really not sure. You know how it goes. It's a work in progress, and it develops as it goes along. So at the moment I'm thinking the trunk will come up here and it will come across here, and we'll have all these wonderful shapes. Now you imagine that there, and then we have the trunk coming up here like that. So can you see that? It's a good fit to go by that scale. Actually, I could use that scale. I was looking at this and I'm thinking, I'm not certain, but at this moment it's just crossed my mind that we could actually have shapes here. You see all these shapes here. If there's some way of using those for this lacy effect, I'd like to keep the positive shapes. Positive shapes, as we've mentioned before, are the actual definite solid shapes here. The negative shapes are the shapes in between the solid. So this is a negative shape. There's nothing there. There's nothing there. It's not solid. That is the positive. Positive, it's solid. You can touch it. Look at that. So I might sit and play around with this to see if there's some way of using that, incorporating that with the branches. But it was the shapes that I like. Perhaps remove some, just cut some of these out so I make bigger shapes. So that is an option at the moment that I'm thinking about. And of course those will possibly be on the weaving, so the weaving would shine through, or they would be on there. Oh goodness, fortunately these things actually take their own way. Once we head towards the messy, or should I bin it stage, it starts to take its own way. This is another piece of lace, and I might put, now that is the top, say that's the top, that's the bottom. I might just do something at the bottom, so we have that at the bottom and maybe that at the top. But it's just ideas. This is why you need to keep a notebook by yourself, by your side. So we'll do, the only thing we can be sure of is that we're going to have the Hessian and the burlap up here. Now the trunk will need to be broken down. We don't want it just plain like this. So I've actually found this, and close up it takes on the look. It's actually got a bark effect on the wrong side, so I could use parts of that, applique parts of that up here, mix it with French knots and herringbone and all the lovely stitches that we use, so we have quite a textured bark here. So I've made a start on the outline of the tree here. What you're looking at the moment are the branches. If I just slide it up a little bit, you can see it's quite long, the trunk is quite long, comes up and round here, and we're now getting the shapes, the negative shapes between the branches. Here's the branch here, you see that. Now the threads I'm using, I looked through the sewing box and I couldn't exactly see what I liked or what I wanted, so I then decided to look through my stash, my odds and ends and my remnants, and as I've done before, I found something I like, just this, and that's all there is to this piece. That's all I have. And if you can remember, for one project I stranded some gold fabric, or a fabric that had a gold thread running through it. Well, I did exactly the same to this. There's some really lovely threads here. I'm just going to enlarge this so you can hopefully see some of these gorgeous threads. I mean, this in itself looks like tree bark, but can you see these threads here? So all I've done is strand it for the threads I want. So if I put it round this way, and you can see these threads here, I particularly like that, so I just pulled it out. And luckily I can do that on this thread, sorry, on this piece, because it's such a loose weave. There it is. There's some other threads there as well, nice textured bobbly type threads, so I want those, so I just pull those out as well, and there we are. I've taken all these. There's a very nice silvery one in that same piece that I've just shown you, which I'll be using, so I've taken out some of these, so they'll all be used to give a tree bark, a woody effect on my tree. Now, as I said, I have started doing it, and I've used a slow stitch, a running stitch all the way around here. The blue is the same as this in my blue sample. Here I have a blue one as well, so I did it exactly the same, and I took this one out, if you can see that one out there, which is the same as the gold one. They're two, they're the same fabric but different colours. So in this very pretty one, I did the outline here, and I couldn't really see it because it's all very gold. The stitches I have put down, that's ribbon, were all very gold, and they blended too much into the background, and I thought, oh my goodness, my glasses can't cope with that, so I've gone round it in the blue as well here. I'll probably also do a blue down there. So this is how I started off. Great big needle, big darning needle with a gorgeous big eye and a blunt end, and I have put a small knot in there, And this is just so easy. I'm going to turn it round now and I'll show you where I started. So just through from the back. Where's my needle? Oh, there it is, there. Gosh, that's hard to see, isn't it? There. Through from there. Make sure you don't pull the knot through. And just do your slow stitch, your running stitch, as you would normally. Now, I have found that on this, I'm only picking up the burlap. I'm only going through the burlap or the scrim, hessian, whatever you want to call it. I'm not actually going right the way through all the layers of fabric, but that doesn't matter because I should still need those later on when it comes to mounting this on or with the weaving. So this is how I'm going to work the slow stitching. Right, can you see that? The slow stitching up here. I'm going to use these as well, the threads that I've already withdrawn, to fill in the positive shape. And the positive shape is actually the bark and the branches. Negative shapes I will leave for the time being. Negative shapes, the empty shapes in between. Okay, so I'm going to carry on with that. Hopefully I will introduce some stitches at some point to give it some texture, but for the time being all I'm going to do is use the slow stitch and go round outlining it. Just keep filling in this space here, being aware that we do need some texture on it. So I'm just going to go and do that for a while and see what sort of effect I come up with now. And while I was sewing this, I had a thought. When I pop those down and said about the texture, and it looks like tree bark anyway, I thought I'm going to try something else. So I've taken several strands of that thread, I've knotted it, and I've threaded it in a needle, into that big needle that I've been using, and I'm going to couch it down. Now, as you know, this is always a work in progress and it takes its own form. Never know what I'm going to end up with, really. So to couch it, I've got quite a number of those threads here. Big knot in the back. The knot can always come out. Pull it through. So now we'll come through to the back, to the front from the back, and these threads now are just laid wherever you want them to go. I want them to go straight. I want a straight line at the moment. So pull it taut, and then take your needle in at the point where you want your line to finish. So that is where I want my line to finish. So I'm going to take it in like so. Now I'm going to leave the needle there. At the moment it's just a little bit too thick to play around with us at the back, knotting and tying under. So I'm going to leave it there like that. Okay, so it's quite tight. And then I've threaded another needle, a smaller, finer needle, still with a nice eye, but it's a lot smaller. Let's see if I can. It's a lot smaller. There it is. And it's sharper. It's sharp. So I've taken a black thread from our group of threads there. And to couch, I'm going to go from the back. So take the needle from the back. Where are we? Am I on there? From the back, like so. Secure it. So I'm going to go over that thread a couple of times just to secure it so it doesn't pull through. And then over sew. Now we've done over sew before. We've done it several times now. So over sew from one side to the other. Now I'm going to turn it round and see if I can do it your way so you can see it, what I'm doing. Okay. and at regular intervals at the moment. You don't have to do it at regular intervals. Sometimes if you want to make a real detail, you could vary the spacing between the stitches, but because this is so thick at the moment, I'm going to do it about every quarter of an inch, half an inch say, to secure it down. And then if I want to make a decorative feature of it later, I'll come back with another thread and go over it, but it will be quite secure. So can you see that, just from the back to the front, over the threads and into the back, or into the front to the back. So from the back into the front, over the threads, and from the front into the back, and pull it. And I should do that all the way along to the end. And I think I might put a few more rows of this in, because at the moment it's looking quite nice, and it's a nice thing to do as well. Once you get to the end, then you just tie this off like you would do normally in the back, and you can over sew the knot, or you can knot this, the end of this, knot that, and over sew it in place, just so it doesn't wriggle free. So I'll carry on with this for a while and see what happens. I've used all the threads I said I would use, and it's giving it a nice texture there, but I think it needs a little bit of colour, a different colour, and I'm thinking of putting some green, just a little bit of green embroidery thread here and there, just to give it a lift and maybe add to the texture. But at the moment I just feel that it needs a tiny bit more colour, and I think I've chosen green, but once I get the threads out and have a look, that could change. But it's looking good, it's looking good. I'll see if I can make that a little bit bigger. Yeah, you might be able to pick out some stitches there. I've used the couching, but most of this is actually slow stitch. I continued with the couching here. I did several rows of couching along there and maybe along here, but everything else that you're looking at is actually slow stitch. It's running stitch. So I'm just going to pull it down a little bit. I hope you can see the texture, because the texture is really lovely. Now, I did add some green, but just a tiny bit of green. I'm not even sure that you can see it on the screen. Does that make a difference? It's just here, a few stitches here and here and there and here, and it is just to add something else, just to pick out maybe a detail. I didn't want too much green because I like it as it is, but the green I think just added something else. So what stitches have I added? All I've added is the feather stitch. Oh, and the green was done in just ordinary straight stitch. So that's that. Unfortunately, I did end up filling some of these spaces in, but I made sure, if I move that down a little bit, I made sure to leave some spaces so we have a contrast of thick, dense areas here and the emptier areas there and there. I quite like this, and I think I should leave it like this, but I won't, and I am not going to put anything else on here now. That's the problem, it's knowing when to stop, but I'm definitely stopping with this now. The next thing to do, which I will do off camera, is to cut this all the way around. I might neaten the edges because this is very frayable. Frays really, really easy. and I need to put this with this. If you're wondering about the feather stitch, if you could refer back to the booklet that we made, and I will put a link in the blurb. I might flash a link up here as well when just in case you can't find the feather stitch. I'll do one very quickly here. So needle, threaded, knotted in from the back. Now once again I'm using a large needle and thick wool, and it's all exaggerated so you can see it on the screen. I'll make that bigger. Right, so in from the back to the front, then you're going to hold this down and decide on how wide you want your stitch. I'm going to have mine very wide so you can see it. So in to the back from the front, keeping this thread here steady with your finger, otherwise it could just curl up and just be lost into the background. Now at this point, decide how long you want your stitch. So I want mine this long. So bring your needle out, your needle's here. Bring the needle out between these two stitches here and pull the thread through. There you go. There's your first stitch. Now your second stitch is exactly the same, but you're stepping over either to the left or the right. So I'm coming over here. I want it the same size as this, so from there to the width needs to be the same size here. So over here, exactly the same into the back, holding the thread down here so not to lose it. Then decide on the length here. You see the needle there, and there we go, and that is all there is to feather stitch. And this is the finished tree, and I particularly like this. I think that's looking good. I kept looking out the window at the oak tree to think, oh, does it look anything like it? But then I think, well, it doesn't have to, does it? This is my interpretation of a tree, and yours will look different. So that's the tree. Now we're going back to the Matisse, who use lots and lots of really beautiful colours, and that's how our weaving grew out of Matisse and his colours. So now the next thing to do is to attach the two pieces together. Right, now do I want that at the top? Don't know about all that white, but I think I might be covering some of that up. So all I'm going to do is line this up, the tree shape, and sew it in place. So we have the tree shape, and the background is the Matisse influence with the colours. So what I'll do, I shall sew that down, and I think I'll probably try and machine sew that, although I doubt very much whether my machine needle will go through all those thicknesses. But I shall secure that in place. It needs to be lined up a bit better than that. Bring it up there. Oh yeah, I will be covering up the white, but that doesn't matter. Oh no, I might catch some of the white, save some of it. So anyway, I should spend some time now lining that up and securing it together. Now at the moment I'm not quite sure how I'm going to do that. I want some hand sewing along here at some point to soften that curve. Well, not to soften it, it's already soft, isn't it? Just to decorate that curve there. But how I'm going to attach the two, I'm not quite sure yet. So I should take it away and just play around for a little while and see what I come up with. This is the finished piece now, the background piece. I've had to put it on the side to fit it all in, but I will turn it round very, very slowly so you can see. Close your eyes, there we go, all the way round. But that is now secured, and it took about 30 seconds to machine sew zigzag along there, right the way around there. could do it by hand. As I was doing it, I was thinking to do it by hand I'd actually get a very nice effect to do a big stitch there, but it might not be so secure. So anyway, if you haven't got a sewing machine, you can do that by hand. Now, the top of this I might actually leave, because it's given the tree shape here a 3D effect, which unfortunately you can't see on the screen. Not even if I turn it sideways. It's got a padded effect here, which is making the branches stand out from the background. Now, how I've got that effect is from the top of this. If I bring that over, look, you can see the top here. Now, the option is to trim that down, to actually cut that piece off. Don't need that anymore. But at this stage, I'm tempted to leave it to give that the padded look. So the next thing to do is think about the leaves. Now I have pulled out some fabric, some felt. I'm thinking of doing these in felt, big oak leaves. So that's the next thing. I'll gather up my felt, and we'll have a look and see how many leaves we want and what sort of size. So if you get a chance to see his cutouts, Matisse's cutouts, do go and see them, because I think they're fabulous. Well, his cutouts, as I explained, were most of them were of leaves. So I'm taking his idea of his cutouts. We've already used all these colours here, his beautiful bright colours. The next thing to do is to use his cutouts to make it look as if the leaves are falling from the tree. Now that was our inspiration, my tree from out the front here, the big oak tree. So I took another copy of that and I went out and I got some oak leaves. And I've actually glued these oak leaves on the that one. I actually glued the oak trees here to give the impression of falling leaves. And a couple of months ago, that is exactly what was happening outside my window. It looked as if it was snowing leaves. It was absolutely beautiful. That is the effect that I would like on here. So I picked up a handful of smaller leaves there, and I've chosen two. I've chosen them to contrast inside, a bigger in size, smaller leaf and a larger one. So true to Matisse, I've made cutouts of them, and I've literally drawn round the real leaves. So we have perfect leaf shapes. So put those over there. Now I need to work out just how to place them, and I do actually like this, the falling leaves, tumbling leaves. So I might copy that, might not. How many leaves? I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 2, 4, 6, 7 leaves on that, and it should be, yes, it's the same area. Apart from there, it's the same size. So I know I can get 7 leaves in there. So the next thing for me to do is to place these leaves as if they're tumbling, and I will probably use that, the placement of these. They're not all going straight, they're tumbling around. So once I've decided that, I will cut them out in felt. I'm going to use felt on this, nice and strong, mostly because I won't have to worry about the edges fraying, but not only that, the colours are true to Matisse's really bright colours. So the red, I want red, green and blue. I've got a blue here, it isn't the right one, but I have got a correct blue over there somewhere. They need to be decorated, so I'm going to decorate them and then sew them onto the background. I've made the branches down here. I've taken them down here and I've added string here, and I've also added the leaves. I've slow stitched running stitches, whipped running stitch on here. What have I done there? Yeah, whipped running stitch. That's all I've done on the leaves, with cross stitch here and there just to break it all up and add a little bit more interest, a pinwheel and a lazy daisy, so chain stitch and 2 chains there. Now I'm going to add the sides. I should spend a little bit of time sewing these on by hand. I'm not sure yet how I'm going to do that, whether I'm going to do it invisibly underneath or use blanket stitch. I'm really not sure, not until I actually sit down with a needle and thread and then think, right, what is it asking, what shall I do? It all sounds very dramatic really, doesn't it? But it's not really. Now this is what I've chosen for the sides. I've already ironed the interfacing on because it's a beautiful fabric, but it's very, very flimsy, and once again it's very frayable. I've already divided it into 4. I don't know if you can see the creases here. So I'm going to cut these into 4 strips, and then I'll add them first on the long side, 2 long sides, and then on the top and bottom. But that's, I'm running away with myself a bit here. I'm anxious actually to get out because it's a beautiful day out there, and the snow is still around, although it is now melting. And I just want to go out and walk in it before it totally disappears. I can see the sun. I know it's gorgeous. So I haven't been out for my walk yet. I got quite carried away. As I said, this is addictive. Did take its own form. I've sewn the leaves down. I'm very, very carefully going to lift this up so you can see them. So those are all the leaves I've sewn down, and I added leaves. I think in the original picture there were 7, and there are now I believe it's 10. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh, 9. 1, 2, 3, 9. Oh, I cut 10 out, but I've only used 9. So those are the leaves finished, I think. So I've outlined the red one in blanket stitch. These are blanket stitch as well, but I've done a couple in slow stitch. This one and the smaller one is slow stitch. I'm not too sure about the blue. At a distance, they just look like messes, blobs. So I think I might have to look at these again later when the sides are on, to see if I'm going to change some colour or even go round that again in maybe a white slow stitch. The same with this one. So this is how far I've got. I've been very tempted to put some beads on there, maybe in some of these little places here, but I've decided to leave it now until the sides are on, and then I can put it on the wall for a while and just keep an eye on it to see what it needs, if it needs anything. The border is going to go, I'm going to do the 2 long sides first, and it's right side to right side, and I'm going to take it to the edge of the tree here. Machine sew down here, and then I'm going to do the same with this side, down here, right side to right side along this edge here. I might catch that little leaf there, but it doesn't matter. So down there. So that is the next step, to go off now and just to machine sew those 2 in place along their edges. 2 sides done, and it's looking quite nice. I'm really surprised that the needle, the sewing machine needle, went right through this thickness, because it is quite thick now. So there we are, that's the 2 sides. So the next thing to do is put the top and the bottom on now. going to do it in exactly the same way, right side to right side, and sew along there at the top, and do exactly the same at the bottom. That'll actually go there. And there's the finished piece with the border sewn around. I'll just show the border. I need to trim the border now and decide what to do with these pieces here. I'll probably trim that off and neaten them. So that is how it's going to look. The tree, the falling leaves and the background. Let's have a look. And the bottom there. Right, so my next task will be to take these overlapping pieces off here on the other sides, and then to trim this bulk here, and then to trim here. You see this piece off here. Now I still haven't made my mind up whether to keep this piece in there to give it some padding. I think I might do. I think I might do, because it is quite raised, and I know it isn't coming out on the camera, but this is quite raised and it's looking nice. It's giving the whole piece of work a little bit of dimension. So as I say, I will now hang this. After I've trimmed it, I'll hang it for a while just to see whether it needs beads, to see whether these need to be outlined in white, and to decide what I'm doing with this padded piece. But so far I think so good. I particularly like the tree actually. I think the tree would have made a nice picture or a nice design on another piece of work without all this. So this is all finished now, and I've trimmed the back. Now the next thing to do is to make the lining and the back. I'm going to just turn it round here and to get it all in the screen as much as I can. So there we are. Now I've chosen this for the back, and it's a really pretty blue, basically blue and green with some pink flowers, and I thought the blue, these areas of blue will go very nicely with the border. So this will be for the back. The lining will just be bog standard bits of lining that I had it lying around. They're not even the same. If you can see those closely, they're actually different colours, but it doesn't matter, it's just a lining. They're different thicknesses as well. Now I will sew these in white so you can see them constructed. First thing to do is to cut these pieces the same size as this, and I'm going to do exactly the same for the lining. So let's get the lining here. I'm going to sew around the two long, where are we? The two long sides down here, each side, and I'm going to sew around the bottom, but at the bottom I'm going to leave about, say, 1, 2, 3, about 4 inches, which would be 10 centimetres, I think. I'm going to leave that open, and you'll see why later. So down the long sides, nice corner across, and leave about 4 centimetres, 4 inches, 10 centimetres open in the lining, only in the lining. So that's the lining. The back will be sewn. So we've got right sides to right size here, and the bag will be sewn all the way down round from the, let me see if I can get that in again. Oh, this is a little awkward beast. So we got, that's the top here, and that will be left open. So we're going to sew down the long side here, right the way along the bottom, and then up the other side, the other long side. So this will be open. Okay, so I'm going to do that now. Let's see what we end up with. So the two bags have now been sewn around the edge. This is the outer bag, and it was sewn around the three edges, with the top one left open. And then this is the lining, and it's been sewn down the one long side here, along the bottom, and then it's stopped, and then we've finished it, and we've left about 4 inches open here. Then we've carried on sewing along there and up the last long side. So from here, right, we're going to pull this into the right side here. So I'm going to grab the corners here, and I'm not even going to snip the corners that way. I'm just going to leave the corners as they are. There's no bulk there. And then I'm going to get a blunt crayon and just gently push the corners out. And do be careful how you do this. I've had students who have done a similar task where they've had to pull the corners out of their work, and they've used scissors. Now, I don't have to tell you what happened, but let's just say it's resulted in doing repair jobs before they've actually started. And it's easy to do, it really is. So now that is the outer, well, that is the bag, and from there I'm just going to pull it out. Lovely, that's looking good. Now the lining stays this way, it just stays the wrong side out, and then we're going to slip this bag, a finished bag, inside the lining like so. Nothing secret about it, nothing special, and that's a perfect fit. Oh, that's lovely width. Right, just need to trim the top just a little bit. Just going to trim that in keeping. I pull that down. Look, can you see that? I just need to trim off this little bit here. And I'm going to pin the two together. So the lining is now going to be pinned to the bag. So we have the right side of the lining and the right side of the embroidery together. The seams are matching, and I do advise you pin this. It will make your life a lot easier. So match the seams first. I'm just going to open those out. Don't worry if you don't. So I've just open those. Just open those out. This is just getting so big. So match the seams, and now you know that the lining won't twist, that they're going to be flat because the seams are matched. The seams are matched there, lovely. Couple of pins, evenly spaced. So now I'm going to machine sew all the way around here, all the way around the edge. Just going to trim off these old raggy bits, and there we are, sewn down. Now the top of the lining was just slightly wider than the bag, so I've had to pleat it here. There's a pleat here, so I've had to just put a little pleat in there, but it really won't matter. Now the exciting thing is we're going to now bring the bag through this hole. This is why the hole has to be a certain size to bring through all the thickness now of the bag. There we go. Oops, I've left a pin in there. That'll never do, will it? Lovely. I can see the pleat there in the lining, but it doesn't notice, and it won't notice because it will be inside the bag. Now this hole here, just going to bring the corners out first before we deal with the hole. So just push the corners out like we did with the bag. So push that corner out there. Now this hole here, you're going to fold the raw edges in. Okay, fold the two raw edges in, and if you just pull them, they should do that naturally themselves. And pin them. And you can hand sew this if you want. If you want to over sew it, just hand sew. But I'm just going to do a little bit of machining on that. Now to strengthen the bottom of the bag, I've actually machine sewn right the way along the bottom, across the hole and across the whole of the bottom, and that will just give it a little bit more strength in case you push something heavy in there. That should hold. And then this will now go straight in, we hope, corner to corner. That's that corner done. Right, so that is the bag. I'm just going to press that down, and then next thing to do are the handles. Now I've taken the measurements from an average tote bag. We've probably all got these hanging up somewhere in the house. So all I've done is measure the handles on this tote bag, and I've cut out the same measurements in the fabric. It's 50 centimeters long by 8 centimeters wide. Across here it's 8 centimeters. So we're going to fold them over, right sides together. Now pin them if you need to pin them, and then we're going to machine sew across one end. Where are we? Up there. Across one end and right the way down this long seam, leaving this end open. Okay, and we're going to do exactly the same with this one as well. They've both been sewn now along one short side there, and right the way along the length of the handle. So using our trusty old pencil that isn't too sharp, we don't want any sharp points, we're now going to put the pencil onto the edge that's been sewn, onto the short edge that's been sewn like this, and we're just gently going to ease the pencil through like so, to bring the pencil out through the hole at the end. This lining, this wrong side of the fabric's very nice as well. It did cross my mind to use that. I don't know if you can see on the screen, but it is actually gold. Right, I'm going to pull that out now, hopefully, so fingers crossed. So we have this, there we go, look at that. And that is one handle. So I'm just going to push that out like so here. Lovely there. nice sharp edges there. I'm going to do the same with this one. Then this is going to be pressed, so I'm going to press this down all the way along, so the seam is straight on the edge, and this end here, this raw end, is going to be tucked in like so. Okay, and that is going to be sewn down there. So that is going to be sewn down. I'm going to do exactly the same to this piece here. Now it's time to fix them onto the bag. Let's have a look at our tote bag here and see how far from the end. 5 centimeters. Let me see if that's right. 5 centimeters from there, and 5 centimeters from that end. Oh, that just coincides with the borders actually. No, 5 centimeters from each end should be fine. So I'm going to put those down now. I'm going to put them this side of the pin, so we want to give them about an inch inside. Now we need to measure this because they need to be the same. 2.5, that's good. So pin that. So we've got 2.5 there, that's an inch. Then take that over this side. That's it. If I turn that, oh, this is really difficult now. Right, so that needs to go in there, inside there. Want 2.5 there. So the handles now are both 5 centimeters away from the seam, and they're both being sewn at a depth of an inch or 2.5. Now we're going to turn to the back and do exactly the same so the handles match. Now these need to be sewn down, so I'm going to secure these with the sewing machine. And then I'm going to do a couple of rows of slow stitch all the way around the edge. So the next time I get back to you, it will be finished. Hooray! See how we get on. And it's completely finished. I didn't slow stitch around the top. I started to, and it didn't add anything. In fact, it looked too fussy, so I abandoned that idea. This is the back, and the back I think is really lovely. The handles, 1 handle or 2 handles, so it's quite, I'm going to just bring that down, quite nice long handles here. It's very awkward now, it just won't go on the screen. And of course the front. So all finished, all done, dusted, and the inside. So that is your craft bag, or whatever you want to use it for. So I do hope you enjoyed that. I hope you enjoyed hearing a little bit about Matisse and his love of colours and the cutouts, and if you did, perhaps you could like it. And thank you for joining me, and I hope you all keep well and healthy, and I'll be back within a week or 2. So please take care, look after yourselves, and keep wearing those masks. So take care everybody, bye bye.